We were assigned to explain the kashrut. The definition of the kashrut is the body of the Jewish religious laws that deal with the suitability of food, the fitness of ritual objects, and how the food should be prepared, etc. In the picture here, we see the division between the kosher foods on one side and the non-kosher foods on the other. Later on in the video, we'll explain more on what defines a food as kosher or not kosher and how we found that information.
Defined in the Torah, any animal that can chew the cud and has a cloven hoof is considered kosher. They are allowed to eat birds and mammals that are properly prepared, but these have to be properly drained of blood. They are not allowed to eat the sciatic nerve and its adjoining blood vessels, or the chelev, which surrounds the vital organs and the liver. They can also eat fruits and vegetables.
All right, so things that are forbidden that are not kosher would include flesh, organs, eggs, or milk of forbidden animals. Any rodents, reptiles, amphibians, or insects of any kind are forbidden. As said in the Torah, limbs of animals are not allowed to be eaten along with pork. Any mixture of meat or dairy is not allowed whatsoever. So cheeseburgers, as an example, absolutely not allowed. And as stated before, the sciatic nerve and its adjoining blood vessels are not allowed.
The kashrut also explains what animals may be eaten and how they may be eaten. Animals must not be eaten if they are animals that have died of natural causes or if they have been killed by other animals. So basically the only animals that they can eat are the ones that they slaughter themselves. Another important rule in the kashrut is that utensils cannot be used for different foods. They can't mix utensils, so if you use a knife on a piece of meat, that knife cannot be used on any dairy or any vegetable or any fruit. It must be a completely different knife to use on a different food.
Any blood after the slaughter must be removed by broiling, soaking, or salting. The liver may only be kashrut by the broiling method because it has so much blood in it and it has such complex blood vessels. The final process is completed usually within 72 hours after slaughtering and must be done before the meat is frozen.
Mammals and fowl must be slaughtered by a trained individual, the shechet, using a special method of slaughter, the shechita. Among other features, the shechita severs the jugular vein, the carotid artery, the esophagus, and trachea in a single continuous cutting movement in order to cause the least amount of pain on the animal as possible in order to be kosher law.
The rules for the kashrut can be found in Leviticus and Deuteronomy and throughout the Torah. For example, for birds, the Torah lists the forbidden birds in Leviticus chapter 11, verses 13 through 19, and Deuteronomy chapter 14, verses 11 through 18. And later we see in the Torah, in Leviticus again, specifications about rodents, reptiles, amphibians, and insects. Leviticus chapter 11, verses 29 and 30, and 42 and 43.
Another example would be in Leviticus 7:26 through 27, which talks about the draining of the blood. In addition, kosher slaughtering rules can be found in Deuteronomy chapters 12 and 14.
The oral Torah prohibits eating meat and dairy together in Exodus chapter 23 and 19, Exodus chapter 34 and 26, and Deuteronomy chapter 14 and 21. The separation isn't limited to only the foods themselves, but it also includes utensils, pots and pans, plates, dishwashers, and even the towels. A lot of people ask, what exactly is kosher? Kosher in Hebrew means fit, correct, or proper. Kosher is the set of Jewish dietary laws that dictate what kinds of foods can be eaten, how they need to be prepared, and what foods can be eaten together. It is written in the Torah that any animal that chews the cud and has a cloven hoof is considered kosher. For example, cows, sheep, goats, and deer are kosher. On the other hand, pigs would not be considered kosher.
Birds of prey, such as bats and vultures, along with insects and worms, are not kosher. In addition, any fish or sea animals that are scavengers are not considered kosher. The preparation of foods needs to be strict in order to be kosher. For instance, animals must be healthy and slaughtered in as humane fashion as possible, as we discussed before in the video.
Another large part of the kashrut laws is not mixing meat and dairy. For instance, cheeseburgers are not allowed. This rule includes meat and dairy utensils, as they need to be kept separate as well.